In the emptiness of space, signals traveled. Most were noise, the cosmic background radiation of a universe in constant motion. But on this day, in 2476, as Earth's massive listening arrays swept the void, something different cut through the static. A voice, a plea, a final desperate call that would echo across the stars and ignite the fury of humanity. The call reached Titan Station first. Commodore Aisha Delgado stood at the viewport of Titan Station's command deck, her reflection ghostly against the panorama of Saturn's rings. 23 years of military service had worn lines into her face that even the best genetic therapies couldn't erase, each one earned in conflicts across a dozen star systems. The nebula skirmishes had left the worst marks, invisible scars of decisions made and lives lost. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she murmured more to herself than anyone else. Lieutenant Ravi Malik glanced up from his monitoring station. "The rings, Commodore?" "All of it," she replied. "The rings, the moons, the dance of it all. Sometimes I wonder what the ancients would think of us now, watching over Saturn, like it's just another outpost." Malik nodded politely, then returned his attention to the deep space monitoring array. The lieutenant was the station's best signals analyst. Some said he could hear patterns in cosmic noise that even the AI systems missed. His dark eyes reflected the soft blue glow of holographic displays as data from 1,000 distant sources streamed past. "Status report," Delgado asked, turning from the view. "All quiet along the established shipping lanes," Malik replied. "Council traffic normal. Nothing unusual on the outer boundary sensors." Dr. Ellen Vox entered the command deck, her steps quick and purposeful. As Titan Station's cultural attaché, Vox carried herself with the composure of someone accustomed to navigating the delicate politics of interspecies relations. Today, however, her usual calm seemed frayed at the edges. "Commodore, the Council's quarterly protocols have been updated," she announced, handing over a secure datapad. "They've restricted intervention parameters again." Delgado's expression darkened as she scanned the document. More red tape. More reasons to sit and watch. She set the datapad down with controlled precision. "Tell me, Dr. Vox, at what point does non-interference become complicity?" "You know my position, Commodore." Vox's voice was measured, but there was steel beneath the diplomacy. "Some council species consider humanity's eagerness to act a concerning trait." "Because we evolved on a death world," Delgado raised an eyebrow. "Our willingness to fight is precisely why half those pompous delegates sleep soundly in their pressure-regulated habitats." Vox opened her mouth to respond when Malik suddenly straightened at his station. His fingers flew across the controls as he adjusted the array's focus. "Commodore, incoming transmission. Non-standard frequency, definitely not council registered." Delgado moved to his side immediately. "Origin." "Centauri space, specifically." Malik's voice faltered. "Centauri Prime." The command deck fell silent. The Centauri were known throughout the Orion expanse as philosophers and biotechnologists, a peaceful species whose oceanic homeworlds had never known war. They maintained observer status on the Council, but preferred isolation to politics. "Put it through," Delgado ordered. Static filled the command speakers, then fragments of a voice, high-pitched and musical, but fractured with terror. "To any listening species, we are being static cut through. Worlds burning, no time, more interference. They came without warning, we are being erased." A sound, like shattering glass. "This is Governor Saika of Centauri Prime. Help us, please. We offer no resistance, yet they—" The transmission abruptly ended. Malik's fingers danced across the console. "That's all. Transmission terminated at source." "Analysis," Delgado demanded. "Authentic Centauri vocal patterns," Vox confirmed. "That was Governor Saika. I met her at the last council summit." Malik's face had gone pale. "Commodore, I'm detecting massive thermal anomalies across all 3 Centauri worlds. Consistent with—" He swallowed hard. "Consistent with orbital bombardment. Planetary-scale weapons." Delgado's jaw tightened. "Show me." The main holographic display shifted to a real-time feed of the Centauri system. 3 beautiful oceanic worlds, their surfaces normally, a swirl of blue-green waters, now marred by spreading patterns of orange-red. Entire continents were burning. "What species would attack the Centauri?" Vox whispered. "They've never harmed anyone." "The weapon signature," Malik said quietly. "It matches descriptions of the Void Reavers." The command deck temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The Void Reavers were more legend than confirmed threat, a mysterious species rumored to appear without warning, decimate worlds, and vanish. Most Council species dismissed them as exaggerated tales from the galactic rim. "Contact Council Central," Delgado ordered. "Priority Alpha." Minutes later, the holographic face of Ambassador Quell appeared, a Triaxian representative with the characteristic silver skin and multiple eye stalks of his species. "Commodore Delgado," he greeted coolly. "To what do we owe this unscheduled communication?" "We've received a distress call from the Centauri," Delgado stated. "Evidence suggests a major attack. Planetary bombardment across all 3 homeworlds." Quell's eye stalks wavered, the Triaxian equivalent of a frown. "That is concerning. However, the Centauri system lies beyond direct Council protection under the Non-Interference Accord of 2419. Perhaps you recall your own government's signature on that document." Delgado leaned forward. "With respect, Ambassador, we're talking about genocide. The Centauri have no military. They're being slaughtered. We cannot rush to judgment, Commodore. The Council will convene an emergency session to evaluate appropriate responses. I assure you, this matter will receive our fullest attention." When Delgado demanded, "The delegates must be assembled, evidence must be presented, proper procedures." "Ambassador, people are dying right now." Quell's compound eyes blinked in sequence. "Commodore, while your species' instinct for immediate action is noted, the Council operates by consensus. We will begin deliberations within 72 hours, as protocol dictates." The transmission ended. Silence filled the command deck. Delgado stood motionless, her reflection once again visible in the viewport, but now her eyes burned with something beyond anger. 72 hours, she finally said. "They'll debate while an entire civilization burns." Dr. Vox approached carefully. "Commodore, I share your frustration, but we're bound by Council directives. We can't unilaterally—" "Can't we?" Delgado turned to face her officers. "Lieutenant Malik, what's the status of Fleet Task Force Orion?" Malik blinked in surprise, then checked his console. "Currently stationed at Europa Forward Base. 20 ships at combat readiness, including 5 heavy carriers." "Dr. Vox, remind me, what's the Council's definition of imminent threat under Article 17 of the Charter?" Vox's eyes widened as she realized where Delgado was heading. "Any aggressive action that poses an immediate danger to Council worlds or protected species." "And what's the protocol if such a threat is identified?" "The nearest Council military force is authorized to intervene without prior approval," Vox recited. "But Commodore, the Centauri aren't a full Council member. They're only observers." "But the Void Reavers," Delgado interrupted. "If indeed that's who we're dealing with, represent a threat to all species, correct?" Vox hesitated. "Technically, yes." Delgado nodded once decision made. "Lieutenant Malik, Signal Task Force Orion. Priority Code Black. Authorization Delta 79. Tell Admiral Chandrasekhar to prepare for immediate deployment." Commodore Vox protested. "This is walking the line of direct insubordination." "I'm well aware, Doctor." Delgado's voice was ice. "You're welcome to note your objections in the log." Vox stared at her for a long moment, then straightened. "Actually, Commodore, I believe I can provide tactical analysis on Centauri topography that might assist with potential rescue operations." A ghost of a smile touched Delgado's lips. "I thought you might." "Message sent," Malik confirmed. "Admiral Chandrasekhar acknowledges. Task Force Orion is mobilizing." Delgado nodded. "Lieutenant, I want you on point for reconnaissance. Take the Sparrowhawk. We need eyes on the Centauri system that the Council can't monitor or countermand." "Yes, Commodore," Malik's voice betrayed both pride and apprehension. Dr. Vox, compile everything we have on the Void Reavers, separating fact from fiction. I want to know who we're dealing with. As her officers moved to their tasks, Delgado returned her gaze to the viewport, to Saturn's eternal rings, and beyond them, to the stars, where a peaceful race was being systematically erased. "We're coming," she whispered to the void. The stealth corvette. Sparrowhawk dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Centauri system, its advanced cloaking systems immediately engaging to mask its presence. Lieutenant Ravi Malik sat alone in the pilot's chair, his hands steady despite the knot in his stomach. "Passive sensors only," he muttered to himself as he began scanning the system. What he found turned his blood to ice. Centauri Prime. Once a jewel of blue-green oceans, now resembled a cracked egg, its surface a network of glowing red fissures, where orbital strikes had shattered continental shelves and boiled away seas. Massive ships hung in orbit, their design unlike anything in Council records' black angular hulls that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. The other two Centauri worlds fared no better. Malik cataloged the destruction methodically, his training kicking in, where his emotions threatened to overwhelm him. "Computer, begin recording," he instructed. "Full spectrum analysis." He guided the Sparrowhawk closer, using the system's asteroid belt for additional cover. As he approached Centauri Prime, the ship's sensors detected something unexpected: faint life signs in a submerged structure near the planet's southern pole. "Survivors," he breathed. A proximity alert suddenly blared. A Void Reaver patrol craft had changed course, heading directly toward his position. "Impossible," Malik muttered. "They can't have detected me through the cloak." Unless their technology was far more advanced than anyone had guessed. Malik had seconds to decide, maintain position, and risk capture or withdraw with the intelligence he'd already gathered. The answer came in the form of a direct communication from Task Force Orion. "Lieutenant Malik," Admiral Chandrasekhar's voice came through. "Report status." "Admiral, the situation is worse than we feared," Malik replied, already plotting an evasion course. "Planetary bombardment on all three worlds. Centauri civilization effectively destroyed. But I've detected survivors on Centauri Prime southern polar region." "Understood. Return to rendezvous coordinates immediately. Task Force Orion has cleared the Jupiter Gate and is proceeding at maximum velocity." As the Sparrowhawk slipped away from the hunting Void Reaver ship, Malik took one last scan of the devastation. Something about the pattern of destruction nagged at him, the precision, the methodical nature of it. This wasn't random violence, this was execution. On Titan Station, Dr. Ellen Vox was deep in the most secure data archives, bypassing security protocols, with an encrypted access key that, technically, she wasn't supposed to have. As cultural attaché, her official access was limited to diplomatic channels and xenobiological databases. What she sought now lay in the classified military intelligence section. Her search term, Void Reavers. Results were sparse but disturbing. Fragmented reports from remote colonies, whispered accounts from trading vessels, a few grainy images. Nothing concrete enough for the Council to acknowledge officially. But there was a pattern: the Void Reavers never attacked major powers or Council homeworlds. They struck at peripheral species, those without significant military capability or powerful allies. Species that wouldn't be missed in the grand political equation of the galaxy. Vox frowned. There was something calculated about their targets. Something that suggested... Her train of thought was interrupted by a notification on her secure pad, a message on a frequency used only by her most sensitive contact within the Council. "Check financial records, trace Zenite mining contracts in Centauri space, follow the money." Vox's breath caught. Zenite was the rarest substance in known space, a crystalline material that could amplify energy transmission with almost no loss. A single gram was worth more than most planetary GDPs. And the Centauri worlds were rich in it. With trembling fingers, Vox began a new search, this time tracking resource claims and corporate shell entities. What she found made her physically ill. 3 days before the attack, mineral rights to the entire Centauri system had been quietly transferred to a consortium with direct links to 5 council member species. The same council members who consistently opposed human-led intervention initiatives. The same council members who had argued for a cautious approach to the mythical Void Reaver threat. They knew, Vox whispered to the empty room. They fucking knew. She gathered every scrap of evidence, copied it to a secure drive, and headed for the command deck. Commodore Delgado needed to see this, needed to know what they were really up against. Not just the Void Reavers, but the Council itself. Admiral Chandrasekhar stood on the bridge of the UES Thermopylae, flagship of Task Force Orion, as 20 of humanity's most advanced warships prepared to jump to the Centauri system. Beside him, Commodore Delgado reviewed the reconnaissance data from Lieutenant Malik's mission. The southern polar facility still shows life signs, she noted. If we move quickly, we can extract survivors. Commodore Chandrasekhar said quietly, You understand that once we engage, there's no going back. The Council will view this as rogue action. Delgado met his gaze unflinchingly. With respect, Admiral, I believe it's time we reminded the Council why humans were invited to join in the first place. Not for our diplomacy, but for our willingness to fight when others won't. The Admiral nodded once. Task Force Orion will follow your tactical lead, Commodore. This operation is yours. Thank you, sir. Delgado turned to the holographic display, showing the task force formation. All ships prepare for jump. Primary objective, secure the southern polar facility on Centauri Prime. Secondary objective, engage and neutralize Void Reaver forces. Weapons free, but maintain precision, targeting, no indiscriminate fire. As the countdown to jump began, Delgado received an urgent communication from Titan Station. Dr. Vox's face appeared, her expression grim. Commodore, you need to see this before you engage. The cultural attaché transmitted a data package. The Void Reavers aren't acting independently. They're proxies. Delgado scanned the information, her expression hardening with each passing second. You're certain of this? Absolutely. 5 council species orchestrated this. They're eliminating the Centauri to gain control of Zenite deposits. The Void Reavers are their deniable asset. The implications were staggering. Not random violence, not even conventional warfare, but calculated genocide for profit, sanctioned by the very institution meant to prevent such atrocities. Understood, Delgado said, finally. Continue your investigation, Dr. Vox. Find me names. Find me proof that will stand up to Council scrutiny. Already working on it, Commodore. The communication ended as the final jump countdown began. Delgado turned to Admiral Chandrasekhar. Sir, we may be facing a more complex scenario than anticipated. Explain. She transferred Dr. Vox's findings to his console. It appears certain council members may be complicit in what's happening to the Centauri. The Admiral's expression remained stoic as he reviewed the data, but his voice, when he spoke, carried deadly precision. Then, perhaps, Task Force Orion should send a message to more than just the Void Reavers. My thoughts exactly, sir. The jump countdown reached 0, and 20 human warships vanished from Earth space, ready to unleash the full fury of a Deathworld species upon those who had awoken them. The Void Reaver command ship, Oblivion's Edge, dominated the orbit of Centauri Prime, its massive obsidian hull reflecting nothing, as if it consumed even the light of the system's sun. On its bridge, Archon Morvax observed the final stage of planetary cleansing with cold satisfaction. Extinction protocols at 97% completion, reported his second-in-command. Remaining resistance concentrated at Southern Polar Installation. Curious, Morvax noted. The Centauri were not supposed to have hardened facilities. Our employers assured us they were entirely defenseless. Perhaps a research station sensors detect unusual energy signatures. Morvax was about to order a focused bombardment when proximity alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple FTL signatures detected 20 vessels emerging. Space itself seemed to fold as the human task force materialized in perfect attack formation. Before the Void Reavers could react, kinetic rod volleys streaked from the human vessels. Tungsten projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds that impacted the nearest Reaver ships with devastating force. Shields flared and failed. 3 Reaver vessels shattered instantly. "Evasive action," Morvax commanded. "All ships engage the intruders." The void erupted in chaos as energy weapons crisscrossed the blackness. The human ships moved with precision that bordered on prescience, as if they had trained specifically for this engagement. Which Morvax realized with growing dread they likely had. Humans were known as a warrior species, evolved on a planet that tried to kill them daily. They had a name among the Council race's Deathworlders. On the Thermopylae, Commodore Delgado directed the battle with cold efficiency. "Concentrate fire on their command ship. Carriers 2 through 5 launch fighter screens. Spartacus and Marathon moved to secure the southern polar facility for ground team insertion." The human vessels performed a complex maneuver that no Void Reaver tactician had anticipated, splitting their formation to create a crossfire that caught the Reaver fleet in a deadly net. Marine dropships ready for deployment. Commodore reported Captain Jonah Rourke from the lead assault craft. The Marine commander's scarred face appeared on the tactical display, his expression eager. "Just give the word." "You have a green light, Captain. Get those survivors out." "With pleasure, ma'am." 5 heavily armored dropships detached from the human carriers, streaking towards Centauri Prime's surface, under the covering fire of the fleet engagement. As the dropships descended through the atmosphere, they encountered the devastation firsthand. The once beautiful oceans had been reduced to toxic steam clouds. Continental shelves had collapsed into magma-filled chasms. The Centauri's famous crystal cities lay shattered. Captain Rourke gripped the overhead bar as his dropship bucked through turbulence. Around him, 30 battle-hardened Marines checked weapons and armor, each soldier a product of Earth's gravity and combat doctrine. "Remember," Rourke addressed his troops, "we're here to rescue survivors, not just kill the enemy. The Centauri are pacifists. They'll be traumatized, possibly in shock. Gentle handling." The Marines nodded, their expressions solemn beneath helmet visors. Each had trained extensively in xenophysiology and emergency medical response. The dropships touched down on a cracked plain of what had once been an oceanic plateau. Now, it was a blasted landscape of glass and steam. Through the haze, they could make out a partially collapsed structure, the source of the life signs. "Move out," Rourke ordered. "Defensive perimeter. Scanner teams confirm life signs." The Marines deployed with practiced efficiency, securing a landing zone, while sensor specialists pinpointed the survivor's location. "Captain," one called. "I'm reading approximately 40 Centauri lifeforms. Underground facility 3 levels down. Structure is compromised but holding." Rourke nodded. "Alpha team with me to extract survivors. Bravo team, watch R6. We don't know if ground forces were deployed." The answer came in the form of energy fire from a ridge to the east. Black armored figures advanced through the haze. Void Reaver ground troops moving to eliminate the final Centauri survivors. "Contact," a Marine shouted. "Eastern approach, multiple hostiles." "Bravo team, hold that ridge," Rourke commanded. "Alpha team with me, we're getting those people out." The Marines engaged the Void Reavers with devastating efficiency. While the aliens had superior numbers, they had never faced humans in ground combat. Their tactics assumed predictable responses based on flight instincts. Humans didn't flee, they advanced. Rourke led Alpha Team into the damaged structure, following scanner readings to the sealed emergency shelter where the Centauri had taken refuge. They encountered sporadic resistance from Void Reaver infiltrators, but the confined spaces of the facility favored the Marines' close-quarters training. Finally, they reached a massive pressure door, emergency markings in Centauri script covering its surface. "Life signs strongest here," the sensor specialist confirmed. 42 Centauri. Rourke approached the intercom panel. "This is Captain Jonah Rourke of the United Earth Fleet Marine Corps. We're here to evacuate survivors." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a musical voice responded, trembling with fear and exhaustion. Are you real, not another trick?" "We're real," Rourke assured them. "We received your distress call. We've engaged the Void Reaver fleet in orbit. But we need to move quickly." The pressure door slowly rolled aside, revealing a chamber filled with Centauri refugees. The amphibious beings huddled together, their normally iridescent skin dull with stress and dehydration. Many bore injuries. All showed signs of shock. At their head stood a tall female Centauri, her elaborate gill structures marking her as a leader among her kind. "I am Governor Sci-Fi," she said. You came." "We came," Rourke confirmed. "And we're getting you out of here." As the Marines began preparing the survivors for evacuation, Sci-Fi approached Rourke. "Captain, there is something you must know. This attack, it was not random. The Void Reavers were sent. They were guided to our worlds." "Guided?" Rourke asked. "By whom?" "Before communications failed, we intercepted transmissions. Council encrypted frequencies. They spoke of resource liberation and acceptable losses." Her large, luminous eyes fixed on Rourke's. "They sanctioned our extinction, Captain." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Commodore Delgado will want to hear this directly." As the evacuation proceeded, Sci-Fi revealed one more critical piece of information. The Reavers brought a planet killer, a singularity device. They intend to collapse our sun. Rourke immediately activated his command link. "Commodore Delgado, Priority Alpha. We have confirmed intel of a stellar collapse weapon. Repeat, the Reavers have a sun killer." In orbit, Delgado received this information as the space battle reached its crescendo. Human ships had suffered damage, but had inflicted disproportionate losses on the Void Reaver fleet. The Oblivion's Edge, however, remained largely intact, protected by multiple shield layers. Admiral Delgado turned to Chandrasekhar. "I request permission to lead a boarding party onto the Reaver command ship. If they have a singularity device, we need to secure it." The Admiral studied her for a moment. "That's a high-risk operation, Commodore." "With respect, sir, it's the only way to be certain. Destroying the ship might trigger the device." After a moment's consideration, Chandrasekhar nodded. "Permission granted. Take whatever personnel you require." Within minutes, Delgado had assembled an elite strike team, experienced zero-G combatants, equipped with the best armor and weapons humanity could produce. Their transport, a specialized boarding craft, detached from the Thermopylae and accelerated toward the Oblivion's Edge. "Target their starboard docking ring," Delgado instructed the pilot. "Breach charges on my mark." The boarding craft approached through a hail of point defense fire, taking hits but remaining operational as it locked onto the Reaver vessel's hull. "Breach charges set," the engineer reported. "Detonation in 3, 2, 1." The shaped explosives blew a perfect entry hole into the Reaver ship. Atmosphere vented violently, carrying debris and several Void Reaver crew members into space. "Go, go, go," Delgado ordered. The boarding team surged into the alien vessel, encountering immediate resistance. The interior of the Void Reaver ship was as black as its exterior corridors of light-absorbing material, illuminated only by sparse blood-red lighting panels. "Tactical mapping active," announced the team's navigator. "Uploading ship layout as we proceed." They fought their way toward the central command core, encountering increasingly fierce resistance. The Void Reavers were formidable opponents, genetically engineered for combat with natural armor and enhanced reflexes. But they had never faced humans fighting on pure adrenaline and righteous fury. Delgado led from the front, her particle rifle cutting down Reavers with surgical precision. "We need a prisoner," she called out. "Command level." One of her team members, Sergeant Wei, managed to incapacitate rather than kill a Reaver officer. They secured the alien and continued their advance. Finally, they reached the command core, a cavernous chamber dominated by a holographic projection of the Centauri system. Around it stood the ship's senior officers, including Archon Morvax himself. The fighting here was brutal and close quarters. Delgado lost 3 team members before they secured the room. Archon Morvax, cornered, but defiant, snarled at Delgado. "You interfere in matters beyond your understanding, human." "I understand genocide well enough," Delgado replied coldly. "Where is the singularity device?" The Archon's alien features twisted in what might have been surprise. "You know of it." "We know everything," Delgado bluffed. "The question is whether you die quickly or spend the rest of your existence in a high-gravity prison cell. Your choice." Whether convinced by her bluff or simply recognizing defeat, Morvax gestured to a sealed chamber adjacent to the command core. "There, but it is already armed. The purification of this system cannot be stopped." "We'll see about that." Delgado ordered half her team to secure the device, while she focused on the command core's data systems. "Download everything. I want communication logs, mission parameters, payment records, everything." As her team worked, Delgado studied the holographic displays. They showed not just the current operation, but records of previous cleansings, dozens of worlds, hundreds of species, all methodically eliminated over decades. And with each record, the same encrypted council authorization codes. Commodore called one of her tech specialists. "I've found something you need to see." On a secure terminal, the specialist had accessed the Void Reaver's command logs, including holographic recordings of their mission briefing for the Centauri operation. The recording showed Archon Morvax meeting with representatives from 5 council species, the same 5 Dr. Vox had identified. In cold clinical terms, they outlined the resource liberation plan and the acceptable extinction of the Centauri. "Copy everything," Delgado ordered, "and prepare a fleet-wide broadcast." Across Task Force Orion, on every ship and every Marine deployment screens, suddenly displayed the damning evidence Council representatives explicitly ordering genocide for profit. On Centauri Prime, Captain Rourke and his Marines watched in stunned silence, alongside the Centauri survivors they were evacuating. Governor Psycha's luminous eyes filled with tears as her people's fate was discussed like a business transaction by those who had publicly called the Centauri valued friends. In orbit, Admiral Chandrasekhar's expression remained impassive, but his orders reflected his fury. "All ships target remaining Void Reaver vessels. No quarter." The task force responded with renewed determination. The Void Reaver fleet, already decimated and now leaderless with their command ship captured, began to break formation. On the Oblivion's edge, Delgado's team had secured the Singularity device, a complex mechanism designed to collapse a star's core into a black hole. The ship's engine room had been converted into a launch platform for the device. "Can we disarm it?" Delgado asked the engineering specialist. "Yes, Commodore, but it's going to take time." "Time we don't have," she replied, noting multiple system failures throughout the captured vessel. "Prepare for extraction. We're taking the device with us." As her team rigged the massive weapon for transport, Delgado received an unexpected communication, a direct call from Council Central. "Commodore Delgado." Ambassador Quell's voice was tight, with barely controlled rage. "You have violated multiple Council directives and committed acts of war against a sovereign entity. You will stand down immediately and—" Ambassador Delgado interrupted. "I've just transmitted evidence to every council member that proves 5 of your colleagues ordered the genocide of the Centauri for mining rights. Still want to talk about violations?" Silence. "I thought not," Delgado continued. "Task Force Orion has rescued survivors and secured a stellar collapse weapon that would have destroyed this entire system. We will remain on station to provide humanitarian assistance to the Centauri people. Any attempt to interfere will be met with appropriate force." She cut the transmission before Quell could respond. Within hours, other Council vessels began appearing at the edge of the Centauri system observation ships, maintaining distance, but monitoring the human operation closely. On Centauri Prime, a field hospital had been established for the injured survivors. More Centauri were being found in scattered shelters across the 3 homeworlds, nowhere near the original population of billions, but enough to preserve their species and culture. Governor Sika stood with Captain Rourke watching, as human medical teams worked alongside Centauri healers. "Your people risked everything for mine," she observed quietly. "Why?" Rourke considered his answer carefully. "Humans have a saying, Governor. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We've seen genocide before in our own history. We swore never again. The Council will punish you for this intervention." "Maybe," Rourke acknowledged. "But there are some lines that must be drawn regardless of consequences." The captain's communication device chimed a priority message from orbit. "Commodore Delgado is inbound," he informed Sika. "She wishes to meet with you directly." When Commodore Delgado's shuttle touched down at the field hospital, the scene had transformed from desperate evacuation to organized recovery. Marine engineers had stabilized the damaged structures. Medical teams had treated the most critical injuries. Supply drops had provided fresh water and nutrition for the survivors. Governor Sika waited to greet her, flanked by Captain Rourke. Commodore Delgado. Sika performed the traditional Centauri greeting, a graceful movement of her gill structures that humans often compared to a fluttering fan. "Our people owe you a debt that cannot be measured." "No debt, Governor," Delgado replied. "Just neighbors helping neighbors." They walked together through the hospital complex, speaking of immediate needs and longer-term recovery plans. The Centauri civilization had been devastated, but not extinguished. With human support, they could rebuild, though it would take generations to restore what had been lost. As they talked, Dr. Ellen Vox arrived via a second shuttle, bringing updated intelligence from Titan Station. "Commodore," she greeted Delgado. "The Council is in chaos. The evidence you transmitted has sparked a full investigation. 3 of the 5 implicated delegates have already been taken into custody by their own governments. And the other 2 fled, but being pursued." Vox's expression was grimly satisfied. "More importantly, other documented cleansings are now being reinvestigated. It appears the Void Reavers have been used as proxies for decades, eliminating species whose territories contained valuable resources." Governor Sika absorbed this information with quiet dignity. "How many others have suffered as we have?" "Too many," Vox admitted. "But the evidence recovered from the Reaver command ship should ensure that justice is served." A Marine approached with an urgent message for Delgado. "Commodore, multiple Council diplomatic vessels are requesting permission to enter the system. They're carrying humanitarian supplies and asking to address Governor Sika directly." Delgado turned to the Centauri leader. "Your call, Governor." Sika considered for a moment. "Let them come. The Centauri have always believed in reconciliation over retribution. But," she added with newfound steel in her voice, "they will find us changed by this experience. No longer naive." "I'll relay your decision," Delgado nodded. "Task Force Orion will remain in system to ensure your security during these negotiations." As the others moved to coordinate the incoming Council delegations, Delgado found a moment of solitude near the edge of the camp. From this vantage point, she could see the devastation stretching to the horizon, a once paradise reduced to blasted wasteland. Yet amid the destruction, Centauri and humans worked side by side to create something new from the ashes. Admiral Chandrasekhar's voice came through her personal communicator. "Commodore status report. Survivors secured, sir. Relief operations underway. Council representatives en route." "And the political fallout?" Delgado watched as a team of Marines helped Centauri children plant native seedlings in a makeshift greenhouse, the first step toward reclaiming their world. "Significant, Admiral, but necessary." She paused. "Any word from Earth Command?" "Mixed reactions. Some applaud our intervention. Others worry about the precedent." Chandrasekhar's voice softened slightly. "For what it's worth, I believe we did the right thing." "As do I, sir." "There will be consequences, Aisha. Court-martials probably. Political sacrifices to appease the Council." Delgado had expected as much. "We knew the risks." "Yes, we did." The Admiral's voice carried a hint of pride. "I've recommended you for the Star of Valor." Whatever else happens, I want that on record. She was saved from having to respond by the approach of Captain Rourke and Governor Sika. Commodore Rourke reported, "Council representatives will be landing within the hour. Security protocols are in place." "Thank you, Captain." Sika stepped forward. "Before they arrive, Commodore, there is something I wish to give you." She presented a small crystal vial containing a glowing blue liquid. "This is the essence of our world genetic material from our oceanic ecosystem. When we rebuild it, will be the foundation." "Governor, I can't accept something so precious." "You must," Sika insisted. "Among my people to share the essence is to make one family. You and your kind risked everything for strangers. You are strangers no more." Delgado accepted the vial with proper reverence. "We will honor this trust, Governor." As the council ships began appearing in the sky above, Delgado reflected on the cost of the past few days: lives lost, careers, potentially ruined political fallout, yet to be fully realized. Yet, watching the Centauri survivors preparing to face their future with newfound resilience, she knew she would make the same decision again, without hesitation. Sometimes standing by was more costly than taking action. Sometimes, mercy meant having the courage to show no mercy to those who would commit atrocities. And sometimes, being human, being a Deathworlder meant carrying the strength to fight when others could not. 1 year later, Titan Station's observation deck offered a different view. Where once Commodore Delgado had contemplated Saturn's rings alone, she now stood with Lieutenant Malik and Dr. Vox watching a holographic display of the ongoing Centauri reconstruction. "The Council's reparation initiative has exceeded expectations," Vox reported. 17 species contributing resources and expertise. The oceanic recovery is proceeding faster than projected. "And the political reforms?" Delgado asked. "Substantial. The new charter explicitly limits secret military alliances and requires transparency in resource allocation." Vox smiled slightly. "They're calling it the Titan Protocols after this station." Malik, recently promoted, following his recon mission, gestured to another section of the display. "The emergency beacon network is online. 27 previously unprotected species now have direct lines to rapid response forces." Delgado nodded in satisfaction. The task force's actions had indeed carried consequences. She had faced a board of inquiry, and diplomatic tensions had run high for months. But the outcome had been worth the personal cost. Earth now held a more prominent position in the Council. The Void Reavers had been tracked to their homeworld and contained. Most importantly, the Centauri were rebuilding changed but unbroken. On her desk sat 2 items: a formal commendation from Earth Command recognizing her exceptional judgment in crisis, and the crystal vial Governor Sika had given her, still glowing with life. "New transmission from Centauri Prime," Malik announced. "Governor Sika wishes to speak with you." The holographic display shifted to show the Centauri leader. Her appearance had changed traditional robes, replaced by more practical attire, her manner more direct than the ceremonial style of the past. "Commodore Delgado," she greeted. "I wish to share our progress personally. The first new city rises from the waters today." "That's wonderful news, Governor." "We are naming it Delgado's Stand." Sika's expression conveyed deep emotion. "So that future generations will remember that when darkness came, light answered." Delgado found herself momentarily without words. "Governor, we simply did what was right. And that is precisely what makes it worth remembering." Sika performed the traditional gesture of respect. The Centauri once believed that peace meant the absence of conflict. We now understand it means the presence of justice. After the transmission ended, Delgado remained at the viewport, contemplating the stars beyond Saturn's rings. Commodore Vox approached carefully. "The intelligence briefing you requested. There are reports of unusual activity in the Antares sector. Possibly another cleansing operation in the early stages." Delgado accepted the datapad, scanning its contents with practiced efficiency. "Have we confirmed these reports?" "Not yet. but the pattern matches what we saw before the Satari incident. Lieutenant Malik, Delgado, turned to the young officer. "Prepare the Sparrowhawk for a reconnaissance mission." "Yes, Commodore." As her officers moved to their tasks, Delgado sent a brief encrypted message to Admiral Chandrasekhar. Potential situation developing. Standing by for orders. The reply came almost immediately. "Task Force. Orion is yours if needed. Some fires must not be allowed to spread." Delgado smiled grimly. The galaxy was learning what humanity had known since climbing down from Earth's trees and facing its predators. Sometimes, peace required the willingness to fight for others who could not fight for themselves. And the Deathworlders would always answer when called.